I host a monthly networking group, and learning and development professionals and leaders come together to talk about insights and challenges that we're facing. Last month, when we met, we were talking about the challenge of having our employees embrace their learning and really take ownership for their own learning journey. And we acknowledged the huge impact it would have if more employees in our organization would be responsible and take ownership of their development. A colleague shared that she was noticing that employees in her organization weren't always spending their professional development budget. So each employee has a certain amount of money that they can spend every year, and regularly employees weren't using that. And not just on a 1 year, but a year over year pattern. And we were talking about it, and she had done a little bit of exploring internally and realized that employees didn't have the time to complete learning. They were so busy with the tasks in their jobs that they didn't have the time to spend that money and to sign up and take advantage of it. And she was wondering about, and we discussed, should she implement learning days? So in addition to having sick days or vacation days or mental health day, personal days, should she have a learning day? And it kind of harkens back a decade or so ago when Google and some of the big organizations set aside 20% of an employee's work could be dedicated to kind of non-task specific activities. And so it's kind of like that, I suppose. But I think there's more to it. And I think that's maybe part of the solution, but I don't think it's everything. And I think it gets back to the different perspectives, I suppose. So organizations can provide time, but that only goes so far. And I think ultimately for employees to embrace their own learning, they need to prioritize and they need to make learning be a priority for them. And so there's many different ways of looking at prioritization. There's the Eisenhower's famous 4-box model. Is something urgent or is it important? Also with that, you could look at, I handle my big rocks first and then my smaller rocks and then my sand, and the analogy of how does that all fit in a jar. You can look at time blocking in your calendar. So instead of these really long to-do lists, actually blocking it in your calendar, and lots of other different approaches. I suppose it comes down to still different perspectives and being aware of those, that as organizations, we can provide time to our employees, but ultimately our employees need to prioritize their learning. So lots of different things there, certainly only a beginning of the conversation. But I guess fundamentally the question is, how would your organization benefit? How would it look different if your employees owned their learning and were passionate about their own development?